Sometimes resolving the conflict in a healthy way is removing the person and the behavior from the organization. The 4 enemies of unity. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this for a while. When you're overly emotional, you're not rational. So sometimes I call it the 24-hour rule. If you have something that happened, if it's not something you have to deal with like immediately right away and it can wait 24 hours. But if you're feeling like overly heated and overly in your emotions, you may want to give it that 24 hours at times so you don't come off and start lashing out and saying something that you'll regret. You think everything's fine? Why are you talking to me so rude? Stop texting when you're having conflict. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. You need to take your problems up to leadership, to the person who can actually fix it. What's up, everyone? I want to jump right into what today's topic is because this is such a powerful and important one. I've been waiting for some months to finally get back to this, and this is how great leaders transform conflict into collaboration. And I'm going to be breaking down the 4 enemies of unity. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this for a while. So, hello everyone, and welcome back to Elevating Beyond with a 2-word mission statement: change lives. And before as we go into this 4 enemies of unity and how to build unity, let me just tell you, I'm sharing this from experience, not just from theories of building my company from the ground up. Literally starting over 18 years ago in 2007 with my office in a Freakin barn. Moving forward to 2025, we serve over 100 amazing individuals with developmental disabilities, have over 30 team members on our team. That's not even including the other team members that I work with, like with a podcast, the books, and other things too. So, leadership. I continue to teach this from not knowing what the heck I was doing. That's why I have my book, 16 Reasons Why Your Business Sucks, How to Be Freaking Awesome at Every Level of Your Business, Leadership, Profits, and Build Your Own Dream Team. That's the playbook. From not knowing what I was doing to literally learning it along the way, and what a game changer that has been for my company, for my organization, and being able to then build other leaders. Leadership is something that may be like a played out word, but it's such an important thing that's not taught from like the experience of the how, like how to actually do it. So going right into this, the 4 enemies of unity. So unity with your team, with your organization, whether you have a company with team members, with employees, whether it's 1, whether it's 2, whether it's 20, whether it's 1,000, whether you have a church and you're in a leadership position or you run a church. I've worked with many people on that. With sports teams, everything comes down to any good, healthy organization to win and be the best. Freaking comes down to leadership. And this thing about unity is it's not, people don't just unify like organically. It takes you as a leader learning how to not only fight for it, but you have to be intentional to guard and weed out these 4 enemies of unity. So let's just freaking get right into it. Number 1, leaving conflict unresolved. I'm going to break down each thing. Number 2 is playing politics. Number 3, sucky communication. And number 4, gossip. And I'll explain what our no gossip policy is. So let's just get into it. The first one, number 1, leaving conflict unresolved. So what happens with this is no one enjoys conflict. But as a leader, not only do you don't create drama, that's a different thing. Conflict and having healthy conflict is meaning that you're having a problem, that you work with it in a healthy way, and the goal is that it actually gets resolved. And this helps the problem gets fixed. It helps to unify people. It helps us to move forward. Or sometimes it helps to weed out toxic people. But when you're having some type of conflict going on within your team, and you as the leader, which I've been guilty of this in the past, of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with that. I hope it just gets better. I hope it goes away. What I've learned is it temporarily you feel like it's getting a little better, but really it's like having a leak in your faucet. And it's like, let me just put a piece of tape over it. So temporarily the little piece of tape is like blocking the water a little bit from leaking out. Over time, whatever is causing the leak gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Boom, the tape breaks one day. Water's leaking everywhere through your ceiling and everything. So leaving conflict unresolved is the same way. Let me just go into some things we do to resolve conflict in a healthy way. One of them is when you're having an issue with a team member, first of all, don't call them out like in front of the whole team. We have a thing called the golden rule, like do unto others as you've had done unto you. That's one of our core values. So you bring them in, you make time, you talk with them like one-on-one for exactly what's going on. One of the issues might be you see something's happening. There's like tension between two team members, and maybe one of them isn't picking up the slack and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And you see the other team member like being irritable with them, and the whole organization can start to feel it, but nothing's getting done. So in those moments, you're able to you may start with meeting one-on-one with each team member. Then there's times where we'll meet with them together. It's in confidentiality. We go over, hey, here's what the problem is. Here's what we need to fix. I love you. You're amazing at this. This needs to change. And I have a little drawing here. If you can see it. We separate the behavior from the person. And then we have the building, the company, Dreamshine. So like the person is in a little bubble, the behavior. And depending on what it is, maybe you're dealing with someone who has some ongoing issues with negativity and such, but they're actually really amazing at what they do with their job. So we'll talk to them and be like, you're amazing at what you do. You're incredible with your job. I love you as a person. However, this behavior where you're just like starting to lash out on people, or when someone talks to you about something that needs to be done, when they turn your back, you're like rolling their eyes at them, and you're bringing this whole negative vibe into our entire organization, which negativity is toxic. It's cancerous. And you have to protect, as the leader, you have to protect the unity, you have to protect your organization, and it's your job to help weed this stuff out. So this going in the right way is like, I love you. You give an exact example, so you're not just talking like beating around the bush. There's a quote that says it's unkind to be unclear. So you have an exact example of like, here's a time when you said this so-and-so negative thing. Here's another time when I know like the leader came and talked to you, and I saw as soon as they walked away, you just looked up and rolled your eyes in front of that for everyone to see, whatever they are. And you continue to see if they're going to be working on this. If they're willing to grow and it's going to get better, then that's awesome. But sometimes things get to a point, and that's where I have that thing where we'll be like, okay, you as the person, if it gets down to it, are welcome back in this building. But if that behavior continues to come back, like with the negativity, and you go through the exact examples of like the lashing out at people doing that, That's not welcome back here. Like, we don't do that here. This may be, depending on how bad it's been, after several like coaching conversations. And this is leading to another thing, which I'll do another show on, like when, why, and how to fire people. It goes under my chapter of why you suck at firing. But anyway, if it gets to that point, it's like, I love you as a person. Please, you're welcome back. But you separate it. That behavior isn't welcome back here anymore. So if that behavior continues to come back, then you need to take action. And sometimes resolving the conflict in a healthy way is removing the person and the behavior from the organization. That helps actually build your unity because that affects your whole team. We've also had it where it goes the other way, where they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I was like being that negative and doing that. And I love the mission of what we do here. I want to get better at it. And they'll take the coaching and they'll learn from it and they're willing to grow. And it's amazing. Then we've seen them come back and apply it. And maybe the other team member that they were having those issues with, we've been able to talk it through with both of them. And they actually grow more of like a bond and a connection from that. And this starts to elevate the unity. All right. Another one is, this one's important too. With leaving conflict unresolved, I just have another like kind of basic rule that goes under conflict too, is if you as the leader are dealing with an issue, when you're overly emotional, you're not rational. So sometimes I call it the 24-hour rule. If you have something that happened, if it's not something you have to deal with like immediately right away and it can wait 24 hours, this doesn't mean that you're allowing it to go unresolved. This means you're making a choice like, okay, exactly 24 hours from now, depending on how severe the situation might be, I'm going to meet with this person or talk to them on the phone, whatever it may be, and make sure I address this head on. But if you're feeling like overly heated and overly in your emotions, you may want to give it that 24 hours at times so you don't come off and start lashing out and saying something that you'll regret. And that just blows everything up. And we've all had it happen. I mean, there's times with like an email or something, we'll all get some crazy email. I've had it before with dealing with a state, with dealing with fighting with the rules and the high ups. And they had written something really, really nasty to me. And it was like at 11 at night, a situation I had with my company. And I couldn't leave it unresolved. But in the past, I have responded right away in that wrong place of being emotional and irrational and written a lot of things straight out of my emotion of like, well, I think you're stupid and blah, 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 blah. And that didn't make anything better. Not only did the problem not get resolved, that became more of a, even though they were in the wrong, it made everything more unhealthy. And then it just created this whole other issue that wasn't even the issue. And now they're like, oh, you think I'm stupid? So I've learned in those cases, take a deep breath, take 24 hours. There's times where I've even like written up a draft email or text or whatever you're doing of what I really want to say, but I don't actually send it. It just feels good to get it off my chest. And then I end up deleting it. Then the next day I can be in more of like a cool and concise mind, and I'm able to talk to them directly about what needs to be done. It doesn't mean that I avoid the situation that needs to be discussed. It means we're coming about it from a point of like being cool, calm, calculated, and respectful so that the problem can get resolved. And we're not just name calling and saying all this other stuff that we're feeling in the moment. And we've all been there. All right. The next thing, and this goes with this too, is one other thing with conflict. These are just some rules of how to deal with conflict. I get way more into depth in this in other areas, going through my book, going through speaking and all that, but these are important. A lot of people don't know this. When you're having conflict, I myself, as well as all my other team members, I teach when you're starting to feel conflict, don't stop texting at this point or emailing. Like set up, if you're able to be in person, a quick little 5-minute meeting, or set up a quick phone call so you can hear each other's voice tone. Because I love texting. I do it all the time. It's an amazing form of communication. But when you're having some type of conflict situation going on with someone, emotions are already over amplified. So I've had times where I've written like, oh no, everything's fine. And they're looking at it and reading it is, oh no, everything's fine. And they're like, what do you mean fine? Text me back, exclamation point. You think everything's fine? Why are you talking to me so rude? And then I'm like, geez, wait, what? You're the one that keeps showing up late to work. Like you think I'm talking to you rude? But stop texting when you're having conflict. Pick up the phone or sit down if you're able to in person and be able to hear each other's voice. And that way you're able to be like, hey, I love you to death. You're doing awesome. However, this one problem that we're having here where you've been continuing to show up late and we explain the why, here's how this affects everyone. We also do transportation. This is how it throws all the other routes off. It affects our individuals with disabilities. It affects everyone else. This can't continue to happen. I love you. You're amazing, but we've got to work on this. And then you're able to have a regular back and forth, and hopefully it's going to go well. They'll be willing and learning to grow. But when you're having any type of conflict, don't do it through text. That alone, if you take that, or email, will save you so much. You can thank me just for that. If that's all you get from this, that's a huge one. All right. Going to the next one. Number 2, playing politics. So this is really, I've heard other words for it. My good man, Dave Ramsey, I think calls it sanctioned incompetence. And this is basically just like you have to hold everyone amazingly accountable. You can't do the game where you're playing favors. How many of us have seen the horrible examples where when it's not done right, the boss might have their son or the daughter come in and they're not holding them to the same standards. Everyone else is working their butt off. Their son or daughter may come in and be like, oh, I'll just show up whenever I want. I'm the boss's son. I'm the daughter. I'm entitled. And then the boss who's not being a leader, this person's being a boss, isn't holding them accountable, and everyone's watching, and they're thinking, well, I'm working my butt off, but their son, their daughter is just showing up whenever they want. They're not being held accountable for it. And the same thing can go with other team members. Like they may have been with you. We just dealt with this a little while ago. We've had some amazing people that have been with us for a long time. And we love them, again, as people. It's separating the person from the behavior. And we kept trying to work on some issues that kept happening. Over time, they continued to get worse. And what I've seen some places do is they're like, oh, well, my receptionist has been with us for 15 years. I just need to let her get away with it. Now, we do respect and value people being loyal and putting more time into our company. However, if it gets to where they're truly not doing their job and they're starting to do all these things that aren't okay, and you start being like, well, I'm just going to let them get away with it, this is another thing that starts to divide unity, because everyone else starts thinking, easy example that I'll just keep using is like, well, why should I show up on time? That person shows up 30 minutes late every day, and they yell at all of us that being on time is so important. but they don't hold this person accountable over here. That's like the playing politics type thing. And that does not build unity. This divides people. The next one, sucky communication. There's a quote that I love. It says, I'm reading it right now. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. George Bernard Shaw. And so many of us, especially like when you're in doubt or fear or there's something huge that's going on, we tend to not communicate as we're maybe like working on the problem, fixing it. And what happens is when everyone else is like left in the dark, our brains start defaulting to like the worst case scenarios. Let me give you like an exact example for that. So we've had different times throughout our company where we've gone through phases where maybe a team member that had been with us for a long time, for a series of reasons, it wasn't working out anymore. And we say at that point they fire themselves because we give them every chance to change. We coach them. Anyway, maybe they needed to be let go and left abruptly. And sometimes these things hit where someone else may have left the next day or the same day, and all of a sudden like 3 people left at the same time. And what people start thinking, if they don't know what's really going on, they'll start gossiping, which I'm going to get to that next. That's another enemy of unity. Or they'll start thinking the worst. Like, wait a second, is everyone quitting at the same time? Is my job in jeopardy? Is there something else going on they're not telling me? What's happening here? Should I leave? And it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then the next person might get scared and quit. And then other people. So this is why when things are going on, you as the leader steps up, and in these situations, we'll meet with team members. It's like one-on-one out of confidentiality. We have the no gossip policy. And we'll share what needs to be shared accordingly, but we'll be like, hey, we did want to fill you in on what was going on. This happened with our team member. Again, we're always going to love them as a person. We're going to remember them for how great they are. But these situations kept happening, and we work with them so hard to fix it. We wanted them to stay, but it continued to not work out. And as you know, we all help hold each other accountable so we can keep moving together as a team and moving the mission forward. And it wasn't okay to not continually hold this person accountable for that, while we're holding all of ourselves and you guys accountable for the same thing. So it got to a point where we needed to let them go. And we're going to move onward. We're going to move upward. But we just wanted to fill you in on what was happening so you're not just left in the dark and trying to guess what happened. And then also it's like, then the other team member that just so happened to leave the next day right after that had nothing to do with this. Their husband actually just got a job that came up immediately where they needed to relocate in another state. And it was such an amazing opportunity, but they only had 2 days to take the offer. So they actually talked with us. They're leaving on great terms. They wish it wouldn't be like that, but they're taking another amazing opportunity through their husband. So this is like a family life change. The two things aren't even related at all. And the team members like, oh, wow. Like, first of all, thank you. A lot of other places I've worked for wouldn't even like take the time to open up and communicate this with me. And thank you. This lets me know like what's going on. And then we talk about, if you have questions, come back to your leader directly. We're not going to gossip to other team members, but it's just like, that weight lifts. And then their brain doesn't have to try to like read minds, which we can't read minds, and default to the fear and the worst case scenario. And they know what's up. And then they're like, okay, cool. Thank you. And then they respect the leader more. They appreciate the communication more. And this builds more unity and trust. Okay. Another thing is gossip. This is why we have, and my good man Dave Ramsey taught me this, the no gossip policy. And basically, gossip, a lot of times people think gossip is just like talking about so-and-so's personal life and all that, which that is a form of it. But what we really mean by gossip is it's so infectious to your company, to your organization, because people sit there and gossip about all these things and the problem, but they never take it up to the person that can actually fix the freaking problem. So then the problem, and yes, you're going to have problems. We're constantly fixing problems. That's what we do. But then it never gets fixed. And it literally affects the whole organization. And I have an example that I use from a team member that that I had in my book is Mr. Negative Face. We don't give the name. This was a long, long time ago. But, and it's in the whole section of like when, why, and how to fire. I was sucking as a leader at that time. I was doing the plain politics, keeping the person on way longer than I should have, really out of fear, because I was like, oh, our family knows theirs. What if I let them go? What would they think of me? Which is a horrible thing to do as a leader. Then I lost other good team members as a result of that. It started to divide our unity. Finally, it got to a point where this team member needed to be let go. They did something that there was no coming back from. Unfortunately, it took me like 2 years too long, allowing all this stuff to continue to happen. As the person left, other team members started filling me in with all the gossip and drama and things this person was saying. And this is what made me start realizing the importance of, and I'll explain to you our no gossip policy. I even have the whole thing in my book. So many people have requested it. But in this situation, we also do transportation for our individuals with developmental disabilities. And one of the seat belts was out, like in the front seat. And I guess this person was telling someone else, like, at that time we were smaller, and they were like, the seatbelt's not working, and Mark's too cheap to fix it, and he doesn't even care, and all he cares about is money, and blah, blah, blah. And when they told me this, I'm like, wait, what? Like, first of all, the seatbelt's not working in the front seat? Okay, number one, immediately, no one's riding in the front seat, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, we have been making sure to not use it. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, health and safety always comes first. So I can't believe that I didn't find this out. Like, this is a problem with gossip. And I started learning this can affect individuals' lives as well as your business. But had I known this, and I'll give you an example of how this is done the right way. Say we didn't have the budget for it. It wouldn't be because we're cheap. When you're building a company, you're freaking starting from your office in a barn. You're scraping by whatever you can week by week. It might not mean I'm too cheap. It might mean, wait a second, we've got to make sure we get funds for this. But immediately, we're going to make a plan of action where everyone knows in the immediate term, no one is to use the front seat. No one's allowed to ride in this for health and safety. We have it clear across the board. We have a plan of action in place. And then we're immediately prioritizing this in the budget to get the seatbelt fixed. Boom, the problem actually gets fixed. Everyone's safe. And we're able to continue on with our program. But when gossip is done the wrong way, we say you need to take your problems up to leadership, to the person who can actually fix it. So staying in this example that I'm in, if you're having a problem like this with a seatbelt, if you go and you start talking in a negative way to other team members, like, I don't know why Mark won't fix the seatbelt, he's too cheap, that's gossiping, because the other team member isn't the person that can fix it. By the way, if the other team member participates in it, and they're like, yeah, that's crazy. Like, I don't know why Mark's not doing that. Are you serious? They're gossiping. And We have ongoing trainings about all this because it's so important. We'll warn people once. We're so serious about this. And if it continues, they fire themselves. That's how serious we are about the no gossip policy, because it will freaking take your whole organization down if you don't fight for it and defend your organization. Gossip is so toxic. And in this case, it could be endangering lives. So this being done the right way in this situation, now we're bigger, but in this specific situation, I would be the one that you would have taken this up to. So it's not like if, but when we're having a problem like this with a seatbelt, the right way would have been for Mr. Negative Face to come and let me know directly. Like, hey, Mark, the seatbelt's not working. And it's like, oh, crap. Are you serious? I would have made a plan of action right away to fix it. And now that we're bigger, we let people know, okay, you take it up to this leader accordingly who can fix the problem. And by the way, if the problem still isn't getting fixed, then you take it up the chain to the next level. And I tell people to point to, if something still isn't being done, take it up to me as the owner and the CEO. And let me know, like, hey, I talked to the head director about this 4 times and nothing's still being done about it. And I wouldn't be like, oh, how dare you talk? I'm like, be respectful. Let me know. Oh, are you serious? Of course we want to get this fixed. This needs to be done. Thank you for letting me know. Because a lot of people, they stop there. Then they'll bring it back down the ladder to other team members. They'll start gossiping. Everything gets worse. By the way, the problem still doesn't get fixed. In some of those cases, the problem might be fixing the actual problem and having, obviously, a coaching session with the administrator being like, they brought this to you 4 times. What's going on? What happened? Why wasn't it fixed? Again, you're able to get to the root of things, problem solve. This may be multiple things. We need to fix the system. Oh, you're actually not working out in this position. Or you are, there was a miscommunication. Let's make sure we fix the system so this doesn't continue to happen. This is problem solving, and this all combined is what builds unity. But if you don't fight and protect these 4 enemies of unity, I'm going to go through it one more time. Number 1 is leaving conflict unresolved. Number 2, playing politics. Number 3, sucky communication. Remember the quote, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place, by George Bernard Shaw. Number 4, gossip and the no gossip policy. This is how great leaders transform conflict into collaboration and build unity by continuing to be intentional and fight for it and guard against these enemies of unity. And when you have unity, you have another thing which is important for unity. It elevates the shared values, the shared mission. You're continually having time and making time to be able to connect on your why, which is another part of collaboration of unity. And then that builds momentum, which makes you freaking unstoppable. So listen, everyone, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be able to jump into this. Never settle, never give up, and keep elevating beyond. Boom.